Tonight is the deadline for a new contract between the big three automakers and Unifor, the auto workers union in Canada. Now, unlike here in the U.S., Unifor has said they will target Ford specifically for a strike and will extend the deadline for Stellantis and GM.
Meantime, it is day 4 for the strike for the UAW workers, with the 3 key plants picketing, including in Wayne. Negotiations continue between the union and the big three. And now this week, a team from the White House is expected here in Detroit to try to resolve these issues.
Tonight, we are joined by former UAW President Bob King over Zoom, as well as Wayne State University Professor of Management Marick Masters. Thank you both for joining us once again.
Pleasure to be here.
So, Marick, I'll start with you. How big of a deal could it be to potentially have not only the already historic strike here in the U.S., but potentially another against Ford in Canada?
Well, it obviously is a telling point in the movement of labor to try and adjust their wages to create more equity in the workplace. And I think this is a signal that on both sides of the border, there is concern about how workers are being treated, and collective bargaining is a means of resolving those, including the strike. And these things will have to play out as a contest of power, if you will, to determine which will prevail.
Let's bring in Bob now into this conversation. Will Lehman, who lost the UAW vote to Shawn Fain when they were running, last year, he's saying that, look, not everyone is 100% on board with the strategy of this strike. Do you agree with that sentiment? What is your understanding of how the workers in the UAW feel about the way that this strategy is working here so far?
I spent an hour and a half on the picket line at Local 900 yesterday. The members are excited about the strategy, strongly in favor of it. Of course, in every organization, you're always going to have 1 or 2 folks or a small percentage that have a different opinion. But overall, both at my home local, which is Local 600, everybody I've talked to in the UAW, I was at the rally down at the UAW Ford Center. People are fired up. People know that it might be a long struggle, but they really want. I met one member yesterday, 18 years it took him to get to full pay. 10 years as a temporary, then 8 years as steps. That's just so morally wrong. And every member I talked to, no matter what their seniority was, they want those tiers done away with. They want COLA. They want a good agreement. And they're willing to stand up and fight for it. And they really appreciate President Fain's leadership.
Well, Bob, since you've been out there talking with people on the picket lines, are any of them concerned about some of these temporary layoffs we're hearing about and potentially more to come?
Well, they're all concerned about how do they continue to support their families, but they also really have a deep understanding that there's going to be pain. You can't have a strike without pain, whether it's for the workers or whether it's for the general economy. But there's short-term pain that will bring long-term gain for the workers, for their families, and for the economy. When the UAW achieves what they're going after in this, and they won't get everything they're asking for, but they're going to get a really great contract, and it will help the whole economy in the long run. So short-term pain for workers, short-term pain for the economy, long-term gain for both workers and the economy.
Marick, Fain said today that they are still a long way to go here. They remain far apart. In your opinion, what do you think it'll take to bridge that gap? Is there a certain number you believe that's in mind here, and certain, clauses that you think have to be agreed upon to get a deal done?
Well, I think there are certain demands that the union has that are going to be hard to not meet and get an agreement. I think wages are key. I think things addressing in progression and temporary workers, those things are key. I think where the difficulty is going to be on those things that the union wants to get back that were suspended or that they gave back in the bankruptcy era: retiree health care and defined benefit pension plans and jobs banks. I think those things, if they're going to insist on those, then we're probably in for a long strike.
What can you say about, the day-to-day speed of these negotiations? I don't know if it was just being a weekend, but we're hearing reports that they're talking with perhaps Ford on Saturday, GM on Sunday. Is it that slow moving where one company is at the table per day?
Well, these negotiations are very tedious, very complex, and when you want the leaders involved in all of them as they do, it's difficult to deal with them concurrently. but it's doable. The parties have experienced negotiators on both sides, and they also have teams working on this. So people at the very top are not doing this alone. They've got a lot of support, and they can work through the details. I think the issue right now is really that from the union's perspective, management is not being forthcoming enough, and from management's perspective, the union's demands seem a little unreasonable.
Bob, last week when this first went down, President Biden on Friday was urging the automakers to find a way to make a deal, obviously, with the UAW, and now the Biden administration plans to send some aides out to Detroit to help with this. Do you believe that will help get things done, or do you believe that it's really just a matter of the big three stepping up to the plate?
I think it's a matter of the big three stepping up to the plate. I mean, the other thing that Sean has talked consistently about is a just transition. We support that we have to deal with the environmental crisis that we're in, where we want to be part of the solution, but we're not going to be part of the solution and leave workers behind. So these are really critical negotiations. And again, I think it's exciting to me that so much of the American public is behind the UAWs in this struggle. They are for the just transition. They are for all the wage and economic issues that are on the table. People are tired of corporations abusing our environment, abusing workers, not doing what's right. And I think there's some good people on both sides of this, and I hope the companies will step up. That is, to answer your question directly, that's the problem. The companies haven't come across with the really important items, because you're not going to get an agreement ratified if you don't understand how angry and frustrated workers are, and give a package that they'll feel good about and feel like they're being treated fairly.
All right, well, coming up on the end of day 4, I'm sure we will continue following this throughout the evening. Thanks so much for joining us today. Former UAW President Bob King and Professor of Management Marick Masters. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.